Please note that this video contains spoilers for the subject and the series and/or franchise leading up to this entry. I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise, and this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video. These videos get long enough as it is. Transporter 2 movie thoughts, and we're going into notes taken while watching. And I'm going to check every so often that it is still recording. Like with the first one, I absolutely love this movie. Honestly, I like the intro bit of us seeing the car in this better than in the first. I can't necessarily put my finger on it. I definitely like the music better. And of course, the carjackers start with the schoolgirl who Frank might want to help if only he didn't so much mind being late. He actually takes off his jacket before he starts fighting, and they let him. That's awesome. And he kicks their asses. That is this one establishes how well he fights sooner than the first one, which, you know, and the first stunt driving is a little bit later into the film, and yeah, I think it's a good choice. And we see he has rules for the kid as well. It's Friday. I don't have any homework. What bizarre alternate universe is this set in? Friday's when they give you the most homework. I don't usually do this sort of job. Tell me about it. He's not really a friend. He's French. If anything comes up before then, you have my cell. I want it back. And the bad guys are listening in, so they know tomorrow 9 a.m. doctor's office. You know, they already knew that that was, you know, going to happen, but now they find out that it's the driver, and the villain's like, even better. I like how he keeps calling him driver instead of transporter. It just... I feel like he was probably hoping that, like, you know, a la Candyman or something, you know, if you say Beetlejuice, maybe, if you say his name enough times, Clive Owen's driver will appear out of the blue. He and the transporter would be awesome, either together or versus. Maybe like early on they fight each other because they don't quite know what the other one's about, and then later they join forces to fight the bad guy or something, you know. And the bad guys, you know, the villain is introduced kicking ass. You know, you've got the fencing, you know, thingies and fencing masks. It's absolutely awesome. I really love Lola, her look, her attitude, her guns. I love that the virus glows yellow and the antidote glows purple. That's how you know it's science. It's just not science if the thing doesn't glow in a bright color. And, you know, Audrey, you know, comes over and is like, no, not Miss Billings, Audrey. Oh, she is wasted. Now, does he turn her down because he doesn't want to complicate the relationship, or because he's gay? The director originally said gay. I think you can really read it either way, both ways, you know, simultaneously. I like to think that it's, you know, I don't mind if he's gay, although, you know, him having sex with, he'd be bi at best, you know, he didn't seem to mind having sex with Lai in the first one. But, yeah, you know, I more than him not being attracted to her, I prefer to think that it's because he doesn't want to complicate the relationship, you know, it's, yeah. Am I going to get a shot? Are you wearing Kevlar? I really love the music announcing these are the bad guys. You know, first they're exiting the car and then they're entering the hospital. The music just really, yeah. I love the music in both of these movies. I feel like I don't know music well enough to put words to it, but I feel like they have somewhat different. You know, both of them use like, what's it called? It's not original. Yeah, you know, they have songs that have already been released on the sound. You know, I feel like in the first one, it always kind of called attention to itself. I rewatched the first one just yesterday, and I realized that yeah, I said in the video for the first one, you know, oh, he didn't even, you know, I mean, he had still had her hands tied up when she goes to take a pee, but he actually doesn't. I think I forgot, even though I had just watched the movie. Oh, forgot that. I'm gonna finish this thought, then I'm gonna fix that. It's the screensaver, and I can't tell if it's recording or not. I'm gonna guess it is. You know, I mean, obviously she would need her hands free for that, but I think I at least thought that he made it hard for her to, like, the bit she's got around her neck. You know, I mean, he could tie that so that sounds really violent, misogynist. Anyway, I think I forgot that that must be why I said it, because obviously he does untie her hands. Now but yeah, in the first one, the music really announced itself, and I feel like some of the time in this it wasn't quite as obvious, and I also do like the music in this better, but I do still love the music in the first one. Just fix the screensaver. And back to basics. Now, sorry about that. I really like the exchange. Give me the good news. Doctor says I'm cured. Jason Fleming is a lot of fun in this movie, but then he usually is. There's a lot of flu going around. Lots of shots. I forgot that Fleming had such a thick Russian accent in this. I absolutely love it. I realize that I'm saying love a lot, that I love this and this, but yeah, maybe I need a thesaurus. I love a lot about these movies. And Frank realizes there's something wrong. You know, first he sees Lola's tattoo. Was it death by rabbit or something like that? That's, yeah. And, you know, you've got she says, oh, this doctor is sick today. And then out walks one of the goons wearing that doctor's, you know, and then he sees the blood under the door. I really love Lola firing the submachine guns at Frank. And he uses the gas canister as an improvised weapon. And the sprinkler gets Lola all wet. How convenient. Yes, you definitely want to take off the coat when you're getting wet. Makes perfect sense. Very Matrixy effect on the sound waves of the bullets and such. I had forgotten that. And she turns around and shoots the cops, and you know, I don't think we see her take the car, but you know, a minute later she drives up in the car. Yes, Lola, better get that restricting coat off. I really love the chase with the cops. You know, great stunt driving again, and the jump from one building to another with the car. It's, you know, it's the stunt jump of the first movie on steroids. Absolutely love it. And you know, pointed out that it's a lot like, I've only seen the trailer, but they're one of the Fast and Furious movies, and I think it might be one of the ones Statham's in. There's also a jump between buildings. Yeah. You know, after they've done the jump, is like, you know, I think we've lost him. Think again. And then she shoots the helicopter. Thought completed. Why would the police send a helicopter made from wet paper and full of nitroglycerin? And the bum throws the booze away. He's like, okay, I am way too loaded. Yeah, Keith David, or David Keith. I always forget which is which, but I like both. And Lola licks Frank's face. I live in the jungle, and in the jungle it's eat or be eaten. Well, you've also got fun and games, and according to Disney, tons of talking animals. Some of which are not at all interested in eating, you know, someone they would, in the real world, probably be interested in eating. I love the laser sights on Frank's chest. Lola was going to blow up the car with it still so close to them. She might have patience issues. I love the way Frank gets rid of the bomb, you know, gets, you know, uses the thing as a ramp, and then the like, what's it called, crane, you know, the hook thing, grabs the explosive off, which goes through the air, and just far enough off away from the car for it to not destroy the car as well. And Frank left the phone so that they would go to the wrong place, and he's got 3 more in the car. And the cop is cooking madeleines, like, you know, he talked about in the first one, how his mother would always cook them, so, yeah. And he knew he could depend on Audrey, of course. I promised Jack I wouldn't let anybody hurt him. I'm not going to break that promise. And Tarconi actually asks if he can go and cook for them, and then they let him. Frank found the shot, but they shot it, ironically. And Frank is, you know, sneaking around in the crime scene, and, you know, waiting for a guy to go past the crime scene tape, and then through, you know, remind me a lot of 47, the Hitman games. I guess there's a chance it's actually inspired by that. You know, but by this came out in 2005, so somewhere around the time of Blood Money, so there had already been 3 full Hitman games out when this came out. The first one might have come out before the first Transporter movie, but I'm not certain. But then, you know, it's dry wit from a badass in a nice suit who can do action. You know, I can imagine there are other, you know, instances of such than these two. And Tarconi has the cops cooking creme brulee. And Frank climbs the car to get up to Jason, who's, you know, above on this thing. And yeah, Frank climbs this, you know, not like a small car, but a big, you know, just, yeah, awesome. And the jet ski, I honestly remembered that as being later in the film, like maybe part of the climax or something, but that's him driving to catch up to the plane. And Frank sticks Jason, and, you know, Jason doesn't know that that's not the virus. The audience knows because we saw the shot be shot, but the ex-husband is pretty useless, so I really appreciate that the wife isn't obnoxious, like in Taken. And the mother runs and gets Jack out of the car because the you know, what is it, like bomb disposal robot thing keeps messing up. Maybe it's running on Windows XP. You're the devil. I wish. Listen, Panasonic, his rap music is good. He may be a horrible murderer, but at least he's got taste. The big black guy with the dreadlocks is badass. I really love it. It's kind of, you know, in the first one, it was that guy with just a little bit of, like, facial hair. It's got, like, here, and here. You know, the bigger, tougher guy that Frank can't just knock out. And, yeah, and this is the black guy. And in both movies, awesome fight. I love the makeshift boxing gloves, and I really love the fate of the black guy. With, you know, he's out the window, and that the boat crashes over, so crashes into the other one. And I think the implication is that his head was literally crushed between two boats, which, yeah, which they obviously don't show because PG-13. And Frank jumps in the air and avoids the car crash. This, yeah, still recording. In this movie, you know, they come close to Frank being too overpowered, but I think they still nail it. But yeah, you know, two cars driving toward each other at really high speed, and he just jumps and they crash into each other, and then he lands on the, yeah. And he gets the antidote to the virus in the second container right before it's run over. I see Frank managed to get his shirt off. Ladies, it's only fair considering Lola has so much, you know, cheesecake for the guys. Is it technically cheesecake? Does it quite reach? I think I need to freshen up on the definition of that. Does that require like nudity and such? It might. I forget. But you know, she's heavily sexualized. That definitely fits. I'll check on you. Are you saying you'll take her temperature? It's me. Hi, me. Turn around. Bright eyes. And he cuffs several cops together. Ironic. Or coincidental. You know, Jeff is that jerk who goes to work sick and infects other people just because he doesn't want to take a sick day. Breathe. That's right, my friend. Breathe. He's had some years of practice. I don't think he's going to forget now. And the goons grab swords and axes to attack with. I really like the thing, you know, they completely perforate the taxi. And then they're like, I'm out of ammo. Me too. Where's the ammo? In the garage. And then, you know, the guy sticks in the key, and right before he's able to turn it, Frank kicks his hand, breaking the key in half, so now no one's going to get in that, you know, in there anytime soon. So, yeah, the swords and axes are all they could grab. Maybe that's like, I can imagine people, you know, people critical of the first movie probably were like, why don't these guys have guns? It would be a lot easier for them to take out Frank if they had guns instead of fighting hand-to-hand. To which I say, that's why it's written that way, because they wanted a hand-to-hand fight. This is an action. These are action movies. They're written for the action scenes. That's the kind of stuff that you just, yeah, you know, they don't have. Actually, when I rewatched the first one, you know, when they're fighting at like the docks, makes sense there are a bunch of guys, because that's, you know, that's where they've been. It's basically their base of operations. They're waiting there until they can transport all the human cargo. But then Frank, you know, lands on the bus, which drives into the like, is it a terminal? No, it's like a repair, like a mechanic's garage. I'm not a car person. And you know, gets out of the, and then there are a bunch of guys there. That makes no sense, and I love it. How did they get there so fast? They didn't know that Frank was gonna land there, and that's not their base of operations. You know, they drove for like a minute before. It just makes no sense, and there's like a dozen of them there. Just, yeah, absolutely love it. I love Frank using the fire hose in the fight. Oh, and before that, you know, I love Frank attacking with the pipe also, but the fire hose, I probably watched this movie at least half a dozen times. I always go, ooh, when he hits the one guy in the crotch with the front of the fire hose. That's just, that ain't right. I forget the exact quote from you know, the Mike Myers James Bond parody. You know, Austin Powers, that's it. It's some British slang term. And find out the villain did it for the Colombian cartels. And it's like, you really think a bunch of dead politicians is going to make things easier? I don't care. I was hired to do a job, and I did the job. And the whole thing, like, you know, they paid me to do a job. Just like you, except my pay is better, my hair is better, and my suit is better. I absolutely love the villain, but I have more notes on that. The final fight between Lola and Frank is anticlimactic. It's too short. Her being impaled like that is kind of cool, though we of course don't get the money shot because PG-13, but yeah, it's over so fast, which, I actually, yeah, I forgot to, I considered noting this, but then I didn't. I really love the whole bit where she's in the car with him, the whole thing, he's used to driving bad guys for money, but now, he has to drive someone he can't stand and who he knows is doing something really, really awful. And she's like, left. I said left, and he's like, if we do this your way, we're gonna get caught. Which I guess, yeah, that's why she has the gun. She's used to getting caught, and then she kills the guys and proceeds. Like I mentioned earlier, patience issues. But yeah, first they fight in the hospital. And mostly it's her shooting at him, and then he uses the gas canister. And then he has to drive her, and really, which he really, really hates. And she clearly really enjoys making him hate that. And then, it takes a while before the next time they are in the same place at the same time. Yeah, she's with the villain until the next time they meet. And, yeah, actually, and that's because Frank reaches the villain, they're fighting again. And then it's just that short. I mean, I guess it's possible that there was more to the fight, and then it was cut down for the PG-13. Yeah, I could imagine that. It's just too bad, especially considering how much awesome fighting we've just had. And Frank drives insanely fast so he can catch up. First the helicopter, then the plane, and him driving at the to catch up. Yeah. Him driving a car to stop a plane or to get on a plane really reminds me of the opening of Face Off, which is on the list, but it might be a while before I get to it. And then fighting in a plane that's moving in like different directions because it's completely out of control. Awesome climax. And the plane hits the water, and they're submerged, and Frank knows I have to keep him alive, so that brings extra tension to the fight. It's really, yeah. And the gun keeps going back, and as the plane goes either down or up, yeah. And I like the subversion of cliche. It's like he comes in, and then the bad guy grabs a gun, and we're like, oh, he's gonna like kick it out of his hand. Nope, he's gonna sit down. Okay, let's get to know each other. I know enough about you, and then he, I think he knocks the table, so it hits the guy's hand, the gun goes up, and then they start fighting. Just, yeah, you did not know what was going to happen next there. And the movie is 78.5 minutes without credits, and just like the first one, it doesn't spend forever wrapping up. You see you know that he's got the antidote in his blood, which, I mean, I'm not sure it's ever really said, but I guess, like, if it's in his body, if it's in his blood, they could probably, like, I guess synthesize, and they've got, like, almost 24 hours. Or is it, yeah, how many hours before they're done? 24 hours before it's inert. Yeah, never mind. It's this kind of movie. Of course they're going to fix it. But yeah, the cops are right there, and they get him. And then we see the hospital scene, which very quickly wraps up that whole thing. And then I'm looking for a transporter. I'm listening, Now, that brings us to notes taken before watching. Rewatching. Now, in the video for the first movie, I promised that I would try to come up with a way that Frank could be involved without them writing him as basically the bodyguard chauffeur of the kid. And at first I figured, the only thing you lose is that the two of them already had a relationship. And then watching the movie, I realized and that the mother trusts Frank. But you know, watching the movie, it would be very difficult to get. You know, you can't really rewrite it without losing some really good stuff. And I had forgotten that literally between him, between the kid getting kidnapped and him being involved, there's like, yeah, because Lola gets into the car, and that kind of settles that. But yeah, I'll go over, this is what I had written before I remembered, and this would really require a rewrite. But, what if when Frank first meets the families after the kidnapping, so he's yeah, so he's called in for getting the kid back instead of just driving him all the time. In fact, maybe at first they call him and say, please, drive our son, protect our son, his father's a big deal. And he's like, I don't do that kind of thing. And then they call again, it's like, I already told you, but then they explain, now we need him to get, the son back. And, yeah. But, yeah, that would require a significant rewrite, I realize that now. But what if he was hired by the villain to transport first the bad guys to the hospital? To transport the bad guys to the hospital, because if otherwise Lola would insist on driving, and she always attracts attention. There you have why he would be hired. And he's gotten them to the hospital, and he sees them putting on the clothes of the other guys. Maybe he even sees them kill, but I mean, he knows that that's something that sometimes the people he works for do. And, yeah, so he's just about to leave, job well done, and, like, as he's walking out, he sees the kid, and the kid passes him, and he's like, I can't let them do something to a child. And, like, he walks, first he just walks into the, and Lola's like, what are you doing? You already did the job. Just, you can leave now. But she doesn't shoot him because they've been working together. And then he opens the door and he sees them with the syringe, realizes it's a virus they're dealing with, and then he's like, okay, not only do I have to protect this kid, I have to solve whatever this virus thing is, And then the rest of the movie can play out, Yeah, but then why does Audrey trust him? And then you don't, have a relationship between him and the kid. And I will say, I think the ending worked well for that. Basically the whole thing, the parents are still recording. The parents are maybe kind of reconciling their differences, and yeah, he's not going to mess up that thing, and he realized, this is not, I'm no longer, yeah. But I think I wrote more notes about that, so instead of me trying to remember it, I'm going to get into it when I get there. If I ever get there. We'll see when I get there. But, let's see. Yeah, so he intentionally goes against what he was hired to do, which he doesn't really do in the first one. There he completes the job and just walks away. It's only because they blow up his car, then he goes back to their place and beats them up in the hopes that he can find Wall Street. And then he leaves, and she happens to hitch a ride. I had actually, yeah, he actually does leave her there at first, and then he pulls a Wolverine. It's like, okay, for Wolverine from the first movie with Rogue. I realize that might be a little too vague of a reference. As I said in the video for the first movie, I acknowledge that the package turning out to be a person that he then, helps out is not the most creative use of, of the concept of the transporter. Maybe the series does really good with that. But I maintain, it's still, at least he is the transporter there. For the entirety of this movie, he is the transporter in that he has the abilities of the transporter. That's, he doesn't do, no one hires him for a job in this entire movie. The very ending is him seemingly being hired for a job. And I get, you know, that, like I said in the video for the first one, that's maybe like, you know, you could argue, yeah, it's maybe character development that after the events of the first one, he doesn't want to be the transporter or something, you know, so he takes this, you know, more family-friendly kind of job, and you know, he clearly likes the kid. He's not a person who likes very many people, but he likes this kid, and, you know, I mean, he could be like, kid, shut up, I've been hired to drive you back and forth, that's it, you and I are not gonna develop a relationship. You know, he could, like in Man on Fire, at first, he's like, we are not gonna get a relationship, I'm no good at that. You know, but yeah, in this, it is genuinely. And then at the end of this, he's, you know, he's called, you know, I'm looking for a transporter, I'm listening. You know, he's not like. So yeah, at the end of the first movie, he's, you could argue, the end, that the beginning of this movie establishes he is no longer like a. It just dawned on me in both movies, at the start, he's like, I have to make, you know, in this he actually says it, but in the first he just makes sure he gets there on time. In both of them, suddenly the doors open and people pour out and someone gets in the transporter's car. Just in the first, it's robbers, and the reason they're bursting out of there is because they're trying to get away from, you know, before people start shooting at them. And in this, it's because they're kids. It's Friday. They want to get home. You know, class. You know, school's out for the weekend. Not forever. Not even for summer. That's cute. I like that. I appreciate that. You know, kind of mirroring of the. And in the first one, it's like, oh man, they're bank robbers. And then this one, oh kids, I didn't see that coming. You know, that's kind of, yeah. The right, so yeah, you know, he clearly, yeah, at the beginning of this movie, you know, it would appear that he maybe doesn't really want to, you know, I feel like in the first movie, if someone had asked him to do to you know, babysit a kid, he would have been, no, that's not what I do, you know. And then in this, yeah, after the events of the first one, he maybe feels like, you know, the first person to get out of the storage crate thing is a kid. So, yeah, maybe he's like, I'm not going to help bad guys anymore. And then, you know, in this, let's see. Yeah, and then in this, he really, he does he says it's a favor. You know, I don't usually do this kind of job, but he's doing it, you know, nevertheless. And he's clearly done it more than once. He's driven Jack several times at least. Yeah, yeah. Aren't we told that he's been the driver for a month or something? Excuse me. By the father, I think. Let's see. So yeah, you know, in this he's a different person, kind of. And then at the end of this, because he's like, this is what happens when I get close to people, you know, which is also, I mean, for the entirety of this, we don't know what happened with Lai. I get that it's the James Bond thing, you know, get rid of the girl from the last movie, you know. One of the only cases where the girl is back is Mission Impossible Fallout. So the you know, and Julia didn't completely disappear. Now, from the movie where she was a big deal, after the movie where she was a big deal. Right. So yeah, you know, at the end of this movie, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to doing what I usually do, but I still, it's the second movie, and already they feel like, let's have him not be the transporter for an entire movie. Anyway, yeah, to get back to, you know, why it bothers me that he's not really doing the transporter thing in this, when they could have had him do that. There are a lot of action movies where the main guy is an anti-hero. There are a lot where he didn't mean to be there, he didn't want to be a hero, where he's a cop, or has military training or the like. There are a ton where he's, rescuing or helping out someone innocent. There are many where he at first doesn't try to help the innocent. But I don't know one that's quite like the original Transporter movie. Really, the Transporter, by definition, is helping people break the law. If you just need a driver, you can hire them legally. But the Transporter and his rules, by definition, aid in breaking the law. That's why he doesn't want, why does he not want to know the name of the person he's doing the job for? Why doesn't he want the person hiring him to know his name? Because one or both might be captured by the police, and that way neither of them can say anything about the other than give a description of what they look like, which, that they can just not do. But if, a name is much more useful. Now, never look in the package. Why would that be a problem if what you're, transporting is legal? And let's see. And never change the deal is that is to ensure that the criminal he's working, criminals are not the most trustworthy people. That's to ensure that they don't, for example, the thing with, the robbers, immediately they're like, okay, so whatever, there's another guy here. That was not the arrangement, and he explains in great detail, the shocks are not going to be enough, I'm not going to be able to get enough speed to escape the police. All these things, so, yeah, again, if he wasn't expecting to have to, yeah. Anyway. It's cool that the ending has Frank be called up by someone looking for a transporter, and he responds, "I'm listening." But the trailer makes it look like that's going to be part of the movie rather than the way they end it. It's very much the way they end the movie. It's telling us he's not looking to... Actually, yeah, in addition, on a very straightforward, completely superficial level, the one thing it's telling us is he's not going back tomorrow. He's not going to drive Jack tomorrow. They're going to have to find somebody else. He is taking jobs. He's not saying, I don't have time yet, So, yeah, he's definitely no longer doing that, and we can further infer what I've already mentioned. So, still recording. Yeah, it's, let's see. I was going to... Yeah, so it's incredibly important to the movie that it's how they end the movie, that it doesn't happen at any other point in the movie. If I recall the trailer, it's the first thing you see. I get that it's a trademark. It makes it seem like the movie's going to be about him transporting, which I grant that in the first movie we only see him do the transporting thing twice. He does it with the bank robbers, and he does it with the package that turns out to be a lie. He only does and then he tries to transport the third time, but it turns out to be a bomb. I acknowledge that, and the rest of the movie is him not doing the transporting thing, but that's, like I said in the video, that's part of the point. He's pulled out of what he usually does. He doesn't get involved. That's his thing. No names, no opening the package, no changing the deal, no getting involved. I don't care what you're doing. You can shoot someone in my car. I'm not going to call that rude, even. Just, yeah, I'm not getting involved. He doesn't care that the bank robbers got caught, and he at least tells himself that he doesn't care what happens to Lie, which ultimately, after a while, he does at least start to care. But at least he does start out being the transporter. He's pulled out of that, and like I said in the video for the first one, if I recall, maybe they didn't want him to you know, be the transporter 2 movies in a row. They felt like they wanted to, you know, yeah, show character growth or have him in a different situation than before. I just still feel like, but yeah. But the, yeah, you know, again, to get back, you know, you think that he's going to be, it makes you, yeah, them putting in the trailer makes you think that it's going to be how he is in the movie rather than the way they ended. That's annoying. Makes you think he's going to be the transporter in the movie. Really, it didn't have to be Frank Martin in this movie. It could, yeah, it could easily have been any number of other, yeah. But yeah, you know, I guess the point is that after the events of this movie, he's ready to go back to being the transporter, especially the kind of sad note that it ends on, where he realizes he doesn't belong with the happy family. You know, it's not like, I mean, even like, yeah, you know, happy family, they could have like a friend come in from the, you know, you don't have to be family to take part in, but yeah, he realizes he does not belong. It is not, yeah, it's not his thing. And Annalyn McCord, dressed as a schoolgirl and really sexualized, here and elsewhere, someone figured out that that was really her look. And as I said in the video in the first movie, I really like Wall Street. However, in this movie, the right-hand lieutenant kind of character is a hot chick wearing very little, which is a good change. And they even named her Lola. And, you know, you have the opening scene also with a hot chick. Now, let's see. Yeah, I mentioned in the main. The PG-13 edit on Lola's death is very awkward. They should have filmed PG-13 appropriate alternate takes to use. And yeah, I already mentioned the final fight they have is a letdown after the great action they had up to that point. Let's see. I think it may be the French thing. They're not used to really toning things down. They can have some really out there stuff that really does not pass by, you know, the censors in America. And, you know, there are things they cut out of this which are restored in the European cut, which, yeah. And it is, yeah, they're so used to it. I hope that in other works than this, that in the future they realize, you know, I mean, it's not as bad as, you know, when I watched, what's it called, that movie with that almost sort of has a volcano go off, the Paul W. Anderson, I forget the, you know, it's got the Jon Snow from Game of Thrones and Emily something. I actually used to really like her. Now I can't even remember her name. She's got such expressive eyes, you know. That movie, at the opening, when there's like executions, they really thought that was going to be R-rated, and they did not bother to film PG-13 alternate takes. So it's this really awkward literal cutting. Now, let's see. This has a cooler villain, you know. I originally wrote death. I forgot that he had the antidote in him, so obviously he can't die before that. Anyway, villain defeating and location for it than film 1, where, you know, in film 1 it's basically just, it's kind of cool, but yeah, just standing there, he's about to shoot Frank, and Frank is looking for an option to throw the you know, sharp stone into his face, into his crazy face, and then Lai shoots, and at first we think, was Frank shot, and then no, it is a really awesome gun that he has, but yeah, you know, fighting in a jet. I think also this had an actual budget. The first one was made when they, you know, the first earned a lot of money, so it was like, okay, have all the money, make a sequel, and then this, you know. And yeah, the opening has Frank fighting off car thieves. The first film, of course, opens with showing us how successful, you know, a mission of Frank's will go. He's that good. He is the transporter. He's amazing at it. You know, transporting bank robbers is the kind of thing that he does all the time when he isn't being double-crossed or almost blown up with the like. But this movie doesn't need to do that since we've already seen it. So instead we have this scene that shows something else that happens all the time. People underestimating Frank and or trying to steal his car, because it's a nice car. I really love the dialogue and the really chatty villain and the accent and the whole presentation. Absolutely love. Both of these movies have amazing villains, and if Robert Knepper really is the villain for the third one, I can't wait to see that one. He makes such fun villains. Now, in the first movie, Frank travels by car, boat, and plane. He dives underwater, makes a stunt jump in his car, and he parachutes. And in this, you know, really in a lot of ways, these couple of movies are a lot like the Just Cause games. It's probably part of the inspiration. You know, the main big thing that makes a difference is they use vehicles a lot more in Just Cause than Frank does in these movies, and Frank fights hand-to-hand. You know, kind of, if Frank fighting hand-to-hand was replaced with him using vehicles, these movies would be the Just Cause. Yeah. Are they still going to try to make Just Cause movies, actual movies based on... Because they were like, you know, oh, we can totally make a shared universe where Lara Croft and Just Cause coexist. That's, sure, whatever. Oh, and Deus Ex. Stretching, but okay, I guess. And Thief. No. Thief takes place in an alternate world to our own. It does not take place, you know, a couple of hundred years ago or a couple of hundred years in the future where something has happened to return us to kind of medieval Victorian conditions. No, it takes place in an alternate... Yeah, it's too different to fit in. Anyway, yeah, in this he rides a jet ski, he fights in a plane that's going out of control, he swims underwater, and does another stunt jump with a car, much bigger this time. And yeah, I also really love the way he gets onto the plane at the end, and then he, you know, grabs the guy and snaps his neck. Cultural and Reasoning did an article, as they want to do. It was a series of memes, as they often are. 11 memes for people who want to KYS. For people who don't know, KYS stands for kill yourself. Or in certain languages, kiss. Which can create some awkward situations if you're not yet sure what language someone is texting in and they're not using emojis to make it any clearer. If the only thing someone texts you is KYS, either in capital letters or not, it may be prudent to stop and think that maybe it means the other meaning of what you might at first think it means, because that could lead to some really interesting misunderstandings there. And yeah. And this video, like the first one, turned out a lot shorter, but yeah, I've said everything that I had to say, and it's still recording, which is nice. It's going to, let's see, I should really memorize the schedule for these. Next week is season thoughts on the first season of 2.5 Men. I forget if I'm pretty sure that the Transporter 3 is not the next one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do a video off the other list. So the Transporter, I was originally thinking, you know, gonna borrow them off the library, and if the version has problems playing properly, as they sometimes do, stream it off Blockbuster, but then the library didn't have the first one, so I ended up just buying all of these, which so far I'm very happy with that. And I found deals on them. So this is off the library/Blockbuster list, whereas the other list is of stuff I already own. Pretty sure I'm doing one of the... I try to alternate, so it's not, you know, so it doesn't get to be too much of one or the other. And I don't think I'm going to say which one it is. I think I remember which one it is, but I don't want to promise anything in case I am remembering wrong. But it is a movie I'm excited about doing. So that is it for this one. And hope you enjoyed watching as I enjoyed recording. And I will see you next time.